This is the Seven Figure Standard Podcast, hosted by Arash Vossoughi and Mykie Stiller, with mindset and strategies to help you break through and create personal freedom.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Seven Figure Standard Podcast. I'm Mykie Stiller, joined by my co-host, Arash Vossoughi, and we're so happy to be back with you for another episode. Arash, how are you doing?
I'm great, Mykie. How are you?
I am doing great. I have something I want to talk about today. This is a new concept that I just heard you teaching on one of our elite mentorship programs a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it would make for a great topic on the podcast as well. You were talking about approach. Why is approach so important?
Well, we got to understand what approach is. And I'd like to start with defining it, then asking a question. Approach is your automatic operating system. It's what you do unconsciously. And I want everybody to look at what they did yesterday. That will show you your approach. And if we take this to the micro level, we have an approach to leads. We have an approach to our communication. We have an approach to accepting and rejecting ideas. We have an approach towards our goal. We have an approach to leadership. We want to take this to the micro. If somebody really wants to work on their approach and change their automatic operating system. For me, I want to constantly upgrade my approach. I want to do that on a daily basis, because if I want to continue to grow, if I'm going to help people in a bigger, greater way, I have to continue to raise my approach. And then we look at, what is your approach to your standard? What is your approach to discipline? Now, I'm going to tell you right now, you have approaches to every area of your life, but I want you to pick one that you would like to create a massive upgrade. Let's just say you want to increase your income. Well, I gave you an approach last week on the podcast we did on value. That is an example of an approach. And what is your approach to fear? Do you shrink? That's an approach. So why this is, I was journaling one day, and I'm always journaling new concepts. I'm watching how I behave, and I'm looking at, and all of a sudden the word approach came in. I have an approach to this. And that's how I watch myself. I test it before I teach it. I want to make sure it's going to really work effortlessly. This changed the game for me just over the last 6 weeks of doing this. It just absolutely changed the game. See, we're going to the deep micro level here. And I go to the most important areas that I want to upgrade. And that's why approach is so important. Now, I had a question that I told you I wanted to ask. And a lot of you probably are going to be stumped by this question. What is your approach to creating a world-class life? Think about that. How can we create a world-class life if we don't have an approach? I think one of the best goals anybody could set for themselves, and I'm very stubborn about this and bullish about it, is setting a goal of financial freedom. I think it's the most worthy goal that anybody can create because of what it makes of you. But if you look at anybody creating financial freedom, they are so deliberate about how they behave. They are so deliberate about that, where their automatic operating system, their approach, is harder for them not to do than to do it. And then you look at the people who want financial freedom, yet they don't have any approach. Well, it's impossible to create. So that's why I think approach is so important. We should have an approach to everything. And we do have an approach. Every one of you has an approach to everything. I want it to be a conscious approach. I want it to be, I'm watching how I'm behaving. No, this is not in harmony with who I want to become. So I'm going to upgrade that approach. And that's why I think approach is so important.
This is so good. So you just talked about how you can look at approach in the macro or the micro. You can get really detailed, or you can look at your finances, for example, which could be a larger topic. When you start to do this exercise, do you first look at each area of your life? Because you might be thriving in your fitness, but struggling in your finances, or you might be thriving in your finances, but struggling with your relationships. So do you look where you're struggling and say, okay, what's my approach here? What needs to change?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. I don't try to change all my approaches. I work on the most important area that I want to change. If I'm trying to change everything at once, I'm not going to change anything. And so if somebody right now is sitting there and they're like, I am so sick of living paycheck to paycheck, I would look at your approach towards what you're doing on a business level. If somebody is constantly yo-yoing in their weight and they're putting so much energy, they'll do a diet instead of changing their identity about health, I would look at that approach. So we want to take a good look at this. A lot of people come to us about money. They want to increase their income. Now, if you spend any time with me, I spend very little time in my day about money. I'm always about service. I'm always about ideas. What most people think that creates the increase in income is not. But let's come with this understanding. I say this to my clients all the time. I say, if you want more money, you have to understand there's so much money in the world right now. All you have to do is open your eyes. And if you don't have all that you want to have, it's not because it's not out there. You have an approach, habits, and processes that are preventing you from having that amount of money. And that's just in one area. If somebody is shortchanging their leadership, yet they have a business, that's an approach. And we can never shortchange leadership. There's a lot of corporate training I do where I work with teams and I'll work with the owners. And before I work with the team, I work with the owners and they say, oh, I always let this slip. I said, oh, that is a terrible approach because the minute you let it slip, you're going to cost yourself a lot of revenue. So that's a very laissez-faire approach. And we have to look at ourselves. That's why I say, there's so many important keys, but our behaviors are telling us something. Your daily behavior is showing you your belief system. And your choices that you make every day are revealing to your program. So let's say somebody procrastinates. Well, that's showing them their program. And so we want to constantly upgrade approach and go deeper and deeper and deeper into this, because here's the deal. You're going to spend the time anyway. You might as well do the real deep work that's going to create massive joy, massive fulfillment, massive freedom, massive self-respect, and massive self-esteem.
I love it. Okay, so let's flip the coin on the last question I just asked, because you just used the perfect word, which is upgrade. So rather than looking at the areas you're struggling, you might be winning in a big way, but there's still areas where you can upgrade your approach to get to your goal faster. So is another way to look at this, instead of looking at where you might be struggling, looking at your goal and saying, okay, this is my goal and these are my processes. Where can I change my approach to get the most out of it? Like to get more juice out of the lemon? Or where do you see what are the good questions you're asking yourself?
Well, I would look at the goal and say, what approach does my goal demand me to have to grow into? And I've said this a million times, your goal always determines the process. You don't determine the process, the goal does. So when you look at your approach to it, you will start understanding, oh, this is outdated. No, I'm still serving like I did 6 months ago. That's not going to be aligned with it. I'm not being bold. I'm still letting fear control me. Okay, that would be an approach I want to shift. So you're starting to watch it from a neutral place and say, this is not aligned with the person I want to become. And then you write those down and then you start implementing them. But you do it one at a time. The big mistake is judging yourself. Oh, crap, my approach sucks. Now, that'd be a big mistake. You don't want to beat yourself up. You want to observe it. Am I leading? Is my approach as a leader that I have to micromanage? Is my approach as a leader that I have to drag people to the finish line? That wouldn't be a healthy approach. So we want to observe them and say, okay, I'm going to shift this. And you shift them, you shift your approach one behavior at a time. But the reason I created this, think about it. We all know what automatic operating system is. It's just working without any conscious thought. But when we create healthy automatic operating system, it's going to change your game. Now, this is not for everybody. This is for people who want to create a massive jump. And like, if you're listening to this and say, that's too much work, listen, I understand, don't do it. But I'll also understand, don't expect to reap the rewards. You have to pay the price. That price is an all-in commitment of whatever it takes. And it's always going to take whatever it takes. I never know what it's going to take. And if you said, Arash, what is it going to take? I could show you specifically exactly how to build your approach. I could show you specifically how to upgrade. I could show you specifically how to get results, but I can't tell you how much time it's going to take because that depends on you and how committed you are and how well you follow direction.
I'm so glad you just used the term all-in commitment, because that leads me to my next question, which is you can't just change your approach for one day or 1 hour or think about it. It's something that to see results, you're going to have to do consistently over time, every single day, over and over again. Look at your approach and upgrade it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, when you said all-in commitment, I just kind of got juiced because that is my approach to everything. And like if I'm watching a sporting event, I'm all in. Like it doesn't matter. Like that's just my approach to everything. That's automatic already. I don't have to work on that. I do not have to. The one area that I do not have to work on is all in. Like I know that, so I don't put a lot of energy there because I automatically do it. It's already my automatic operating system. But when you'll have a lot of people, Mike, who I made a decision. Then I talk to them like, oh no, you didn't make a decision. You can hear it. You can hear it so clearly. All you have to do is listen to their language. And if I told you your most important approaches, it would be the work you do to transform yourself, the deep internal work. That approach is critical. Communication, your action, your disciplines, your proximity, and your leadership. Those would be at the top of my list. And obviously your standard and philosophy, because those are approaches. Those are automatic operating systems. Those are what's going to create an amazing identity. I didn't mention identity because identity is just the effect of all of that. That's all it is. Your identity is going to go through the roof. And as your identity grows, so does your income. So do your relationships. So does your health. But maybe you have an approach right now that you had a relationship for somebody with 20 years, but they're super toxic, but you've had it over years and you're staying in that. That's an approach. But that could be a limiting approach. So when you really listen to what I'm saying and then identify, like right now, I want all of you to think, what one area of my life do I want to increase the greatest? And I will promise you this. I can tell you this so clearly and with such certainty, that's the area you have to upgrade your approach.
God, this is turning into such a good episode. It brought a big smile on my face whenever you said, when you watch a sporting event, you're all in, because I don't know how many coaching calls we've had that you've brought up the Dallas Cowboys. One of my favorite personal mottos, by the way, is if you're going to do it, overdo it, which is similar to all in. Like, don't halfway do anything. If you're going to do it all and overdo it a little bit. But I want to bring up the power of 5, because as you're talking just now and you listed several amazing, areas to look at for your approach, would you consider the power of 5 to be a framework for approach in a way?
Yeah, it's a framework to everything we do. But first, we can't go on without the Cowboys. They've got to change their approach. I will tell you that right now. Their approach that would be the definition of insanity, right? Keep doing the same thing over and over again. So anyway, I'll go on a different topic. The power of 5 is your foundation to prevent you from drifting. Now, I've given that to everybody. I've given it to everybody. The power of 5 will prevent you, and that's my approach to prevent me from drifting. That's my approach to align myself with my future self. That's my approach to never not be in harmony with my goal. And so the power of 5 is an approach if done properly. See, we got to understand it. I have clients who will come to me and I said, oh, you stopped practicing the power of 5. They go, oh God, I forgot. They don't understand it because they've never done it long enough to let it take hold and understand how much that will create and I'm not exaggerating this, over a 5-year period, it'll create a 50x in their life. See, we've got to understand this deeply. I want you to imagine, and humor me for a second, that you really bought into this and went all in with the Power 5. And every single decision you made was not from circumstances, but was from your goal and your future self. I want you to imagine, just for 6 months of doing that every single day, imagine what that would do. And imagine you keep living your standard at the standard of living of how you want to live for 6 months, every day for 6 months. And then you go to the discipline. You say, I have this pinnacle discipline that will bring all my disciplines up that are in harmony with the goal. And then you look at every day, I'm thinking, feeling, and acting, and I'm training my consciousness of how I'm going to live in the future. And then you have the most positive mental attitude where nothing gets you down, where you are aware that circumstances are not your problem, but your belief system is. So you keep upgrading and upgrading and upgrading. Now everything's going to change.
Woo. All right, Arash, let's get into an action step for today.
So I would like everybody to take this podcast very seriously. And I would like you already know which area you want to change your approach. Like just by listening to this, it already popped in your mind because we think in pictures. Right away, you went to your pain point. And so I want you to pick that area that you're most dissatisfied, that is most important for you to upgrade. And I want you to observe your approach and say, what is my current approach, and write it down. And then I want you to look at your goal and say, is that aligned with my goal? And then I want you on the next, like split the paper in half, like fold it in half. On the other side, I want you to write, what does your goal demand? What does your life, the way you really want to live, demand your approach to be? And then I want you to start working on that approach.
Perfect. All right, Arash, thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and leave us a rating and review. Share this with your friends and family. It'll help us reach more people with the 7-Figure Standard podcast. And we'll see you next week with another new episode. Thanks, Arash.
Thanks, Mykie.
Thank you for listening to this episode of 7-Figure Standard. We hope you found the insights and strategies helpful on your journey to success. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favorite podcast platform to help us reach more people like you. To learn more about Arash and Mykie and how Voss Coach & Co. can help you achieve your goals and reach new levels of success, visit vosscoachandco.com. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of 7-Figure Standard.